Fantasy Source Baseball podcast. My name is David A. Arnott, sitting here with Brad Pinkerton, and today we are talking third baseman, the hot corner.
It's all about the hot corner today.
Indeed. And, historically we talked about the hot corner as being a power position. You think of Eddie Matthews, you think of Hall of Famers like Brooks Robinson, who may have been a defensive guy, was probably too big to play shortstop. But the interesting thing that I've discovered over time reading Fangraphs and other sites is that in recent years especially, second baseman and third baseman, the differences aren't as great as you might think. You got the Chase Utleys over at second base, kind of balancing things out, the Jeff Kents, the Craig Biggios, and then at third base, a lot of teams are going towards a non-power type model, the Bill Millers of the world, if you will. And so you see a little bit of a stratification among the third basemen in the different skills that they bring to the table.
Yeah, I think you see a lot of real-life teams are looking for a defensive third baseman now. So, in certain cases that cuts down on the power, but in some cases we're seeing now a little more versatile slugger over there at third, which can add some speed to your fantasy lineup too.
So let's go down. Let's start at the top of the list. Who do you have as the top two guys that ought to be drafted as third basemen in the fantasy leagues this year, 2011, and basically what rounds would you expect them to be going?
Well, I really only see one clear first-round candidate, and that's Evan Longoria. Because of his upside. Yeah, he was down last year. The power slipped a little bit, and he lost two key components of that Rays lineup. But, the addition of Manny Ramirez, Johnny Damon, that's going to help fill in around him, give him a little protection, and help his production. But the upside there is too great. And you look at third base is not that deep, so it's tough to justify skipping over a talent like Evan Longoria if you're picking in that middle of the first round.
I mean, I see... if I take a look at your list here, you've got Evan Longoria first, and then David Wright still up there at number 2. And the one thing that I see that ties them together, you're expecting both of them to get into double-digit steals.
Right, exactly, and that's what sets them apart from the declining values of like Alex Rodriguez, who used to be up there because of those steals. But yeah, David Wright, I think he's, he could make a case for a first round, but I think some people are still a little hesitant about his City Field effect. Mm-hmm. But his power bounced back as expected last year. He still chips in those steals. He can get you up to maybe 20. That's again hard to pass over if you're on that swing pick, late first round, early second round. That's a great guy to put at the at third base spot.
Now, I happen to agree with you that those two guys, they're the cream of the crop. Then after that, you got like a bunch of maybe 4 guys, I would say. And you mentioned A-Rod. We've also got Ryan Zimmerman, who has come on huge in the past couple years. Everyone knew the glove was there, but the bat has been shockingly good. You've also got Adrian Beltre, who had a monster season last year, and then the guy who came out of nowhere, Jose Bautista. Let's start with Bautista. What do you see him doing this year? Do you have reason to believe that he's going to maybe not hit over 50 home runs, but continue that kind of power production?
Yeah, expecting 50 is overly optimistic, but the power is for real. You can't deny, you had 54 jacks last year. You can't deny it. You have to say, okay, 30 is a given, and if 40 is an even better number. Let's say, I don't want to say you can expect 40, but that's what we're talking about. And there's so much hesitation with Bautista, what we're seeing in the early mock drafts, that he's slipping to like the 4th, 5th round, and if you're talking about a potential 50 home run hitter there, yes, his average is the wild card, and that could affect his numbers across the board. Anywhere from 250 to 270, you just don't know what you're going to get. But you're talking about 5th round and 40 to 50 homers, then you have to pull the trigger.
And if you watched him last year, he hit the angriest home runs in all of Major League Baseball. Beltre going to Texas. Mm-hmm. That's a strange new twist on this whole thing here. How do you see his season playing out?
Well, I like him a lot more now than when his status was up in the air. We can assume that his numbers jumped because he was in Boston. Mm-hmm. So going to a lineup that's very comparable to the Red Sox in Texas, they got some power hitters around him. He's going to fit right in seamlessly, I think. So I'm not expecting a huge decline. I think there will be some regression from his numbers from last year, but I'm not looking for his Seattle Mariners numbers to come back to haunt us.
Okay. Moving down beyond the top 6 guys, top 7 guys. Now you're starting to talk about guys who, all right, well, there's one guy, there's another guy. Not much differentiation between them. in that bottom half of the group, if you're not one of the top 6 guys to get a third baseman, who do you like most among that next group of guys, and perhaps why do you like that guy?
Well, I think the next group, you if you miss out on those top 6, you have to be getting nervous about who's going to be filling the hot corner for you. And I think when you start looking at the guys who are left, you have to think, all right, who has the most upside or bounce back potential? And for me, it's Aramis Ramirez. If he can stay healthy. He showed last year once he got over that thumb injury and was getting into a groove in the second half that he still had the pop. He's there and he can give you some great numbers at a very good value, assuming he stays healthy. Now that's the big question mark with him lately.
Casey McGee is one of my favorites. Guy who plays in a very powerful lineup. Mm-hmm. It's a very odd situation because he had some monster numbers early on. And it's one of those things where after that first group, you think to yourself, well, how much upside does he actually have? Because he's not exactly a spring chicken. How do you see his season playing out?
Well, McGee is one of those guys where he's solid yet unspectacular. So, like you said, there's not a ton of upside there, but he's good across the board, exception of steals. But, you're talking about that group where you're picking from Martin Prado, Michael Young. He's very similar to a Casey McGahee style. Or you're going to take a chance on Mark Reynolds and suffer that 200 batting average if you're lucky. So Casey McGahee will not hurt you in any one category. So he's actually a very good spot if you do choose to wait at third base. And another guy that we missed, and I think some fantasy owners might overlook him in the early rounds, is Kevin Youkilis, who probably lost that third base tag in a lot of leagues. He only started a couple of games there, but will start this season at third base, so he will eventually gain third base tag. That's something to keep in mind when you're drafting.
Yeah, so maybe stash him at a U or a corner infield or something like that until you can get him into third base. And you know what? Treat it like it's an injury or something where you've got a replacement level, or not even replacement level, but a sub-starter level third baseman that you grab late, and you just stick him there for the first few weeks until Youkilis gets that starting eligibility. All right, Brad, third baseman. Fantastic.